Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for a punched out Thursday to Die For, and I'm using a sketch from Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches Series 9, and I'm using the Day 18 sketch. 30 Days of Sketches is long over by now, but I'm still really enjoying all of the sketches, and I wanted to try quite a few of them out. So once again, I'm using one of the sketches. This one was made by the Scrappy Sisters, and the prompt that went along with day 18 was chevrons and arrows. So I started off using my dies, and I cut out these very large hexagons, and I cut out some Bow Bunny pattern paper. This collection is called Altitude. It's the same collection that I used in my last week's layout. I wanted to continue using photos from this same day, so I am once again using this snow themed or winter themed paper. I used the largest hexagon die that I had, and for each photo there's going to be two photos. I cut out two large thick white cardstock hexagons, and then I cut out a pattern paper hexagon, and I did that, like I said, for both of the photos. Then I also cut out my photos using the next largest hexagon die, and again, two of the hexagons out of the white cardstock, and I'm stacking them on top of each other. I'm putting the two large hexagons on the bottom. I'm putting the pattern paper on top of that. Then I put my photo, which is a little bit smaller, and that is also mounted on two pieces of white cardstock, and that just adds a little bit of layering and dimension to the photos. I'm using some chipped sapphire distress oxide, and I'm inking the edges of everything except for the photo, because I just know that that would cause there to be quite a mess on the photo. So now that I have the photos layered up, I'm going to work on the other hexagons, and those are going to have pattern paper on them, but no photos. I'm following pretty closely with the sketch, so I have some shapes of different sizes, and for each of the pattern paper hexagons that I cut out 3 from white cardstock. And once again, I'm layering them up. I'm putting the 3 white cardstock hexagons on the bottom. How many times can I say hexagons? And then I put the pattern paper shape on the top. And I'm using ATG adhesive. That's just a really quick way of doing it. Of course, you could also use liquid glue, and I do that often as well. And then I'm inking the edges using the chipped sapphire. I didn't think to do it, and it would have taken a little bit longer, but another option is to ink the edges of each of the layers before they're attached together. There were a few little areas I couldn't get the dauber into. That would have been avoided had I inked them separately, but I was able to ink most of the edges, so I was happy with them. So I'm going to have a mixed media background. I am just trying to figure out where I'm going to put all of these shapes, and I don't have to think too much because, like I said, I really follow the sketch pretty closely. The only real difference in the placement of the hexagons is that I put 2 on the bottom right hand corner, and there's only 1 in the sketch. Now I'm using a pencil to just roughly mark where the 2 largest shapes are going to go. I don't mark all of the shapes using the pencil. I just wanted to have an idea when I put down the mixed media where the photos were going to be. And this piece of paper was already gessoed. I use white gesso. The paper is a pretty heavyweight paper. It is 120-pound white cardstock. I love using this for mixed media. It is not mixed media paper. It is a thick copy paper or cardstock. It comes in 18 by 12 inch sheets, and then I just cut it down to 12 by 12 inches. I'm using a Vicki Boutin stencil I got in one of my creative scrapbook kits this winter, and I thought this was a perfect stencil to use for this layout since it is snow themed. I'm using 2 different pastes. One is Prima unicorn paste, and the other is Artsy Texture Cream in platinum. The unicorn paste has some glitter or some kind of a sparkly material in it, and I didn't want to have too much of that. I just wanted to have a little bit because the chunks are very large and I wasn't sure how it would go through the stencil. So I decided to mix the two together. I also kind of wanted to just see what would happen if I did that, and I think it worked out well. I am putting the texture paste in a diagonal, going from the upper left-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner, kind of the way the shapes are flowing across the page. And then I also put a little bit extra in each of the corners. I'm trying to be very careful not to smear or smudge the texture paste that I've already put down with the stencil. That, of course, can be avoided by drying the texture paste before putting another layer down, but I didn't do that. Luckily, this time nothing got smeared. I used my heat gun and I dried the entire background, and now I'm adding some color. I use a number of different sprays of different brands. I just picked out a lot of the blues and purples that I thought went with these pattern papers. First, I use some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists in Dragonfly Wings and Robin's Egg. I also use a Lindy's Starburst spray in blue Hawaiian blue. I'm going to add a purplish color, so I use some golden grape for that. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to add a darker blue color, and that's going to be a art anthology spray called Ink Spot. I start off with the lighter colors because I just want to add a touch of those other colors. I want the light blue to kind of dominate the background. So this is where I'm adding the purple color, and I really love this color combination. And I just pulled all these colors, like I said, right out of the pattern papers. I find that's often the best way to make a really pretty color scheme. I let the experts pick the colors, and then I just take a look at what they've chosen, and then I'll use those same colors on my layout. And I don't think I mentioned the golden grape. That's also a Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. I rolled my paper towel across the surface of the paper earlier. That's just to get any little pockets of color that are still lingering on the layout. I want to add a second layer of color. This is where I'm adding the darker blue color, and I am trying to be very careful not to go too crazy with the darker colors. I still want there to be the feeling of snow and winter in this layout, so I thought that by having a lot of white in the background, that would preserve that feeling. Now I've dried the background and I am sprinkling some water over the top. Then I'm rolling my paper towel over it. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I absolutely love to do this when I make a mixed media background. I love the way picking up little droplets of color makes the color that's still down on the layout look. So I generally do this each time I make a mixed media background, and this time is no exception. I roll the paper towel to pick up those water drops, and then I once again dry the background. And now I wanted to add a few more snowflakes. Earlier, when I added the texture paste to the background, I used a stencil that was of snow. But since the texture paste is clear, and you can see it if you look at the layout in person, I don't know how much you could see it on the video, but in any case, I wanted there to be a clearer image of a snowflake on the background. So now I'm using another stencil, and this stencil is an Echo Park stencil called Snowflakes #2. And I'm using some Distress Oxides. I started by using a very light color. I think it might have been Broken China, and it was just a little bit too light. So then I got out the Stormy Sky pad, and I like that a little bit better. It was a little bit darker. So I'm just picking a few spots around the layout, and I'm adding a snowflake here and there. I am not adding more than one at a time. And then once I added a number of snowflakes using the Stormy Sky ink, I decided I wanted to have some snowflakes that were a little bit darker. So I used this color. This is a dark blue color. It's called Prize Ribbon. And I am doing the exact same thing. I'm picking a couple of spots around the background and just adding a snowflake here or there. I'm trying very hard not to overdo it because this is usually the point where I just start adding a lot of things to the background, and I am happy with the background. I don't want to add too much more, but I do like the addition of these snowflakes. So I continue to rotate the paper and add a snowflake here and there. I cut out a little of the footage, but I continued adding the snowflakes to the background. And now I'm using my trusty jar of watered down white acrylic paint, and I'm adding a number of splatters to the background. And I add splatters to many backgrounds, but I like the way on winter layouts it looks like snow. So because I think it looks like snow, I'm adding a lot of white splatters on this layout, and I add several layers of them. And then after I add the white splatters, I was thinking I wanted to add just a couple of splatters of the dark blue color. And I liked the way that looked, so I decided to add a few little sprinkles of another one of the blue colors as well. Now I am all done with the background, and I'm going to start layering my photos and my embellishments over it. I'm using ATG adhesive to attach my photos down. I go back later on and I add some liquid glue behind everything, but because I know that I often like to rework things, I start off with the ATG adhesive. It's just that on this particular layout with all of that mixed media in the background, the photos probably won't be held down forever using the ATG adhesive. So the liquid adhesive was something that I did later on off camera. I added a little bit of foam to the back of one of the hexagons because it was resting on the photo and it needed a little bit more height in order to sit correctly on top of that photo. So I just added a touch of the fun foam. I am layering those two little hexagons to the right of the lower photo, and I again need a little bit of foam to help me out with that. I'm making a cluster at the top, just like in the sketch. I add a small banner to the cluster on the top left. I use the same steps to make that banner that I used to make the hexagons. I cut out a banner from pattern paper using a die, and then I also cut out a number of white cardstock banners and I layered them all together and inked the edges. And then like the other pieces, I needed a little bit of foam to help that banner sit correctly on the page, so I added some to either side. I had a little bit of a hard time with the title for this page. Titles aren't my favorite thing. Unless I have a really good idea that I really love, I probably should put a little bit more thought into some of my titles. I had some wood veneer words, and because the prompt had arrows, I was thinking that I would use one of these wood veneer arrows. While I was looking through my box of wood veneer, I found these words, and so I decided to call this layout Amazing Happy Friends. And I don't end up keeping that, but I do keep all of these words, but I end up just arranging them differently. I'm using two different colors of purple. One is Seedless Preserves, that's the reddish purple color, and then the grape color that I'm using right now, that is Villainous Purple. And I use both of them to ink all of the pieces except for Friends. For that one, I think I might just use the Villainous Purple, but it's the only color that you could really see. Even if I use both of them, it's the dark purple color that's most prominent. So I have those arranged on the bottom. I thought I would make Friends a different color. I ended up feeling that that word Friends just didn't look right. It was too small, and I'm not really happy about making a different color. I thought that would be a good idea, but you'll see. I end up switching things around a little bit. I wanted to add a sentiment to the cluster at the top, so I picked this word play out of a sheet that I had of all different winter themed sentiments. I'm using some gel glue and I'm attaching those wood veneer titles down. I use my T-square to make sure that the words are as straight as they could be. I don't think that the letters in each of the words were perfectly lined up, but I just wanted to make sure that they weren't crooked on the page. I added the word friends underneath, and then I added those other two sentiments. The one on the top says hello, and then love today is what the one on the lower right-hand corner says. I'm using some plastic snowflakes, I guess they are. The sides of them are turquoise, and they go along with the colors that are on the background. So I added a couple of those snowflakes around the layout. I'm adding one next to the title. You can't see it that well, but I do like to include the title along with the clusters when I add embellishments to the layout. I'm gluing all those down. I'm just using regular gel glue. I wasn't sure if I should be using my glossy accents, but I had the gel glue handy, so I used that. That word amazing gave me a little bit of trouble. It really didn't want to stick down, especially that A really didn't want to stick down. Now I'm adding some Paper Studio jewels or dots. They are iridescent and they have a purplish pinkish cast to them, so I thought that would be perfect for this winter snow layout. And I'm sprinkling those all around the page. I sometimes mention this. I don't like to hold too hard and fast to any rule, but I try to think when I put down embellishments that are different sizes that I want to put the larger ones closer to the big elements on the page, the clusters, the photos, and then the smaller ones, I like to scatter those a little bit further from the photos. So in general, that's what I'm thinking, although there are exceptions to that. These are some photos of my younger daughter when she went down to the city for one of her friends' birthdays. They went to the skating rink. I thought it was in Rockefeller Center, but it wasn't. It was one that's right in Central Park. So they went there, and there were a lot of cute pictures from this day. I'm thinking that I might do a 2-page spread just to get a lot of those photos scrapbooked because there are a lot of them and I really like all of them, so I really want to include them. One of my recent goals is to try to scrapbook by album. I have a lot of albums that are not finished or barely started or almost finished, and I would really like to have completed albums, and that's such a motivator for me. So that's what I'm trying to work on. And this is the first album I'm trying that with, so I'll let you know how it goes. I move the word friends to the top. I'm changing the title to Happy Amazing Day. I cut this wood word today in half and I ink it and I add that to the title. Off camera, after I'm all done with this video, I add an ampersand so that the title says Happy and Amazing Day. And then I also ink the hexagons that the 2 photos are on with darker ink. I had already finished making the video when I made those little changes. So you'll see the very last photo in the video shows those changes if you're interested in seeing. This completes the layout. Here are some close-ups. Thank you very, very much for watching this video, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it and got some ideas. Please check out the description box. You'll see links to all of the other ladies who take part in a punched out Thursday to Die For. There's Kathy F., Ronnie Sue, Dorothy, Sonia, and Scrappy Kathy. And every one of them makes a lot of fantastic videos, a punched out Thursday to Die For, and lots of other things too. So please check out their channels. I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I'll see you again next Thursday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.